Every night, millions of people lie in bed with a tired body but a restless mind. The world becomes silent. The lights go off, yet thoughts grow louder and heavier. This is when overthinking takes control, turning simple worries into mountains of pressure. But it doesn't have to be this way. There is a calmer path, one inspired by Stoic wisdom. A path that teaches us how to quiet our thoughts, slow down our mind, and finally find peace before sleep. Tonight, let's walk through that path together. There are moments at night when the mind starts running without warning. One small thought turns into 10, and those 10 turn into 100 more. It feels as if the brain is searching desperately for something to solve, even when nothing needs solving at that moment. This fast-moving stream of thoughts creates pressure, noise, and confusion. It becomes difficult to understand which thoughts matter and which are simply passing clouds. Stoicism teaches us something powerful here. The mind is not the enemy, but its speed can be. The Stoics believed that the mind must be guided gently, not forced or controlled with tension. They understood that a fast mind often comes from unexpressed worries and unprocessed emotions. When the mind races at night, it's usually because the day's thoughts were never given space to rest. So the mind chooses nighttime to unpack everything. The Stoics would remind us to breathe, slow down, and observe the thoughts one by one instead of letting them drag us around. They believed that thoughts lose their power when we look at them calmly. So when the mind runs fast with random thoughts, the goal is not to fight them. The goal is to detach from them, to see them as clouds passing across the sky of your mind. Not every cloud needs attention. Not every thought needs energy. Some thoughts are simply noise, and noise fades when ignored. When you remember that thoughts are not commands, not truths, not predictions, but just signals passing through, the mind begins to slow down. And with each slow breath, it learns the simple peace that Stoicism talks about. The peace that comes from directing your attention instead of letting your attention control you. As the night gets deeper, the mind often turns backward. It starts revisiting mistakes, regrets, and moments that still carry emotional weight. Even small past decisions suddenly feel heavy, as if they demand answers long after the situation has ended. This is when regret becomes stronger, not because the past has changed, but because the quietness of the night amplifies our thoughts. The Stoics understood this tendency of the human mind very clearly. They believed the past should be a teacher, not a jail. Regret becomes a burden when we replay events we cannot change. But Stoicism teaches that what has already happened belongs to a world outside of our control. The only useful part of the past is the lesson it offers, not the guilt it creates. So when past mistakes come back at night, the Stoic approach is not to push them away, but to face them with honesty and calmness. Ask yourself what the moment was trying to teach you. See the mistake as a guide, not a punishment. The Stoics often reminded themselves that regret is simply a sign of growth, because only someone who wants to improve feels regret. That means regret itself is proof that you cared, and caring is not a weakness. What you must let go of is the illusion that thinking about the past can change it. It cannot, but it can change you. And that is where peace begins. Instead of repeating the memory, practice forgiving yourself. Practice seeing yourself as someone who is learning, not failing. You are not the person you were then. You are the person who learned from it. When you treat regret as a teacher instead of a weight, the nights become gentler, softer, and much easier to handle. Nighttime has a strange power. It makes future worries feel heavier than they are. The uncertainty of tomorrow becomes louder when the world is silent. Suddenly, tasks, conversations, decisions, and responsibilities seem larger than life. The Stoics knew that humans fear the future, not because of what will happen, but because of what they imagine. They believe that anxiety grows when the mind tries to control situations that haven't even arrived yet. The future becomes scary when we try to live in it before it exists. This is why many people lie awake thinking about what might go wrong. But Stoicism teaches a simple truth. The future is built on the actions of the present moment. Nothing else. When the mind jumps ahead, it leaves behind the only thing it has power over, the now. And when the now loses our attention, worry grows. A Stoic would gently remind us to return to the present, to return to the breath, to return to what we can control at this moment. They believed that the future should not be feared, but prepared for. Preparation gives strength. Fear gives nothing. So when future worries become heavy at night, shift your focus from the imagined problem to the real tools you have within. You have faced challenges before. You have handled storms. You have made decisions and grown through them. That strength does not disappear. It lives in you. And it is enough. The mind fears the future because it forgets your past victories. So remind yourself gently, you have survived every difficult day so far. You will survive tomorrow too. The Stoics believed that courage is not loud. Courage is the quiet belief that you can face whatever comes. And that belief is exactly what brings peace before sleep. There is something about the quiet of the night that makes small problems appear much larger. A simple task feels like a huge challenge. A small misunderstanding feels like a big conflict. A tiny worry becomes a heavy burden. This happens because the mind magnifies whatever it focuses on, especially when there are no distractions. The Stoics understood this mental trick very well. They believed that perception shapes reality. A problem is not always the problem itself, it is what the mind makes it. When the mind is tired, it tends to exaggerate. This exaggeration can make even the smallest issue feel overwhelming. The Stoic approach is to ground yourself in clarity. Instead of reacting emotionally, try observing the problem as if you were looking at someone else's life. Suddenly, the issue becomes smaller, more manageable, and less threatening. The Stoics often paused before reacting to anything. They believed that most distress comes from reacting too quickly to the mind's first impression. At night, when emotions are heightened and logic is softer, impressions feel stronger. So the key is to wait, to pause, to breathe, to let the first emotional wave pass. Once the intensity fades, clarity appears. And clarity reveals that the problem was never as big as it seemed. Remind yourself that nighttime thoughts are not accurate reflections of real life. They are versions of reality filtered through fatigue. You don't have to solve everything at midnight. You don't have to fix every detail before sleep. You simply need to recognize that your mind is more sensitive at night. And once you understand this, small problems stop feeling so heavy. They lose their exaggerated size, and the night becomes easier to face. Overthinking creates a kind of fear that doesn't come from real danger, but from imagined situations. This fear grows in the mind, not in the world. It appears suddenly, spreads quickly, and feels real even when nothing is actually wrong. The Stoics taught that the mind often scares itself more than any external situation. They believe that fear is a reaction, not a threat. Fear grows when we feed it with thoughts, possibilities, and worst-case ideas. At night, when everything is quiet, these fears sound louder. But Stoicism teaches that unnecessary fear can be dissolved by separating what is real from what is imagined. Ask yourself, is this fear based on something happening right now? If the answer is no, then the fear belongs to the imagination, not to reality. The Stoics would say that imagination can be dangerous when it is untrained. It creates illusions that feel true, but are not. The key is not to fight the fear, because fighting fear only strengthens it. Instead, acknowledge it. Shine light on it. When you name a fear, it loses its mystery. When you understand a fear, it loses its power. Stoicism encourages us to respond with reason. Fear becomes smaller when you remind yourself of your strength, your resilience, and your ability to handle life. You have faced challenges before. You have survived difficult days. You have overcome situations you once feared. If you were strong then, you are strong now. The mind needs this reminder. And when fear realizes that you remember your own strength, it begins to fade. This is the beauty of Stoic thinking. It doesn't run away from fear. It simply shrinks fear down to its real size. The mind has a natural habit of imagining worst-case scenarios, especially before sleeping. A simple thought can turn into a dramatic story where everything goes wrong. This habit creates stress, worry, and emotional exhaustion. But the Stoics understood this pattern deeply. They believed that the mind tries to protect us by imagining danger, even when danger isn't real. The problem is not the imagination itself, but the lack of balance. When imagination works without guidance, it creates negative stories instead of preparing us for real life. Stoicism teaches that imagination should serve us, not scare us. One powerful Stoic exercise is to consider the worst-case scenario calmly, not fearfully. When you examine it with a calm mind, you realize that even the worst outcome is usually manageable. And once you see that you can handle the worst, the fear disappears. This method is not meant to make you anxious, but to make you fearless. Because when your mind understands that you are stronger than the scenario it created, it stops producing such dramatic stories. At night, when imagination becomes wild, remind yourself that the mind is trying to prepare you, not harm you. But you do not need preparation for problems that do not exist. Focus on what is real. Focus on what is happening now. Focus on what you can control. The Stoics believed that reality is rarely as bad as our imagination makes it. Most of the time, the future holds more hope than danger. And when you approach the night with this understanding, the mind stops jumping into dramatic conclusions. It learns to rest. It learns to trust. It learns that peace is possible when imagination is guided with wisdom. There are nights when your body feels exhausted, but your mind refuses to rest. Your eyes feel heavy. Your muscles want to relax, yet your mind remains awake, active, and restless. This disconnect creates frustration. It makes you feel trapped inside your own thoughts. The Stoics understood that the body and mind work best when they support each other. When one is tired and the other is overactive, balance is lost, and balance is essential for peace. Stoicism teaches that the mind needs routines just as the body does. A calm mind does not appear instantly. It is trained. If the body is tired, but the mind is still awake, it means the mind has not been given enough space during the day. It means thoughts were pushed aside, feelings were unprocessed, or emotions were ignored. At night, the mind finally tries to release everything at once. The Stoic way is to create space each day to reflect, think, and let emotions flow naturally. When you practice this daily, the mind doesn't store everything for the night. It becomes lighter. It becomes calmer. Stoicism teaches that a peaceful mind comes from consistent practice, not sudden effort. Simple breathing exercises, moments of gratitude, or a brief reflection on the day help the mind settle long before you lie down. And when the mind learns to settle, sleep becomes easier. The body and mind begin to reconnect. They move together instead of fighting each other. This harmony is what the Stoics always valued, a balanced life where neither the body nor the mind carries the entire weight alone. And when you live with that balance, your nights become softer, calmer, and much more peaceful. Negative thoughts are difficult to control at night because they slip in quietly and multiply quickly. One negative idea leads to another, creating a chain of thoughts that feels impossible to break. This is because negativity gains strength when the mind is tired. The Stoics believed that negative thoughts are natural, but they should not be allowed to take control. They taught that the human mind tends to focus more on problems than solutions, especially when we feel vulnerable. At night, vulnerability increases, making negativity louder. But Stoicism offers a gentle reminder: thoughts are not facts. A negative thought is simply a suggestion from the mind, not a command. The Stoics practiced observing their thoughts without accepting them as truth. They treated negative thoughts like passing shadows. Shadows appear, but they do not change the object that casts them. In the same way, negative thoughts appear, but they do not define who you are. When negative thoughts arise, the Stoic approach is to question them silently. Is this thought helpful? Is it real? Is it something I can control? If the answer is no, the thought loses its power. You do not need to replace negativity with forced positivity. You only need to weaken the belief that negativity is truth. When you detach from negative thoughts, they lose their grip. They stop multiplying. They stop pulling you into emotional spirals. The goal is not to stop negativity from appearing, but to stop giving it energy. And when you learn this skill, nights become much calmer, the mind becomes lighter, and sleep becomes more natural, more gentle, and more healing. Mental noise is one of the biggest reasons sleep gets delayed. Even when the body is ready to rest, the mind keeps replaying the day, planning tomorrow, or creating new worries. This constant inner noise makes it impossible to relax. The Stoics believed that silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the absence of chaos within. They understood that a noisy mind is a mind that has not practiced stillness. Stillness is not shutting down thoughts. It is guiding them toward peace. The Stoics often practiced short moments of silence throughout the day. These moments trained the mind to slow down. At night, when the mind tries to make noise, that training becomes valuable. It teaches the mind that not every thought needs attention. Mental noise grows when you listen to every thought as if it were important. But most of these thoughts are temporary signals. They come and go. You do not need to solve everything before sleep. You do not need to answer every question the mind asks. You do not need to engage with every worry. The Stoic approach is to remind yourself that the world can wait. The night is meant for rest. Sleep is not a reward. It is a necessity. When you recognize this, the mind begins to settle. Breathing becomes slower, thoughts become softer, and the mental noise fades. This quietness is not forced. It comes naturally when you stop chasing thoughts. It comes when you return your attention to the breath, the moment, and the calmness within. Sleep arrives when the mind finally understands that it is safe to let go. A Stoic mindset becomes a powerful guide for calming the mind before sleep. Stoicism is not about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. It is about understanding what you can control and releasing what you cannot. This simple idea creates peace because most night worries come from trying to control the uncontrollable. The Stoics taught the importance of acceptance. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means choosing inner peace over inner struggle. When you accept that some things are beyond your control, the mind stops fighting reality. It stops resisting the natural flow of life. This creates a deep sense of calm. A Stoic mindset teaches you to focus on your response instead of the situation. Your response is always within your control, and your response shapes your peace. At night, when thoughts become heavy, remind yourself gently, I can choose how I respond. That choice is freedom. That choice is strength. That choice is peace. The Stoics believed that peace is not found in perfect circumstances, but in a trained mind. A mind that knows how to stay steady, even when the world is uncertain. A mind that knows when to let go. A mind that chooses calmness over chaos. When you embrace this mindset, sleep becomes natural. Your thoughts become lighter. Your emotions become softer. And your nights become a place of healing instead of stress. Stoicism does not remove problems from life, but it removes the unnecessary suffering we create in our minds. And when the mind is free from that suffering, rest becomes easy, calmness becomes normal, and sleep becomes a peaceful end to each day.